You're listening to the AZREIA Show. If you're looking for quality real estate investing information that you can trust, you've found it. Stay tuned and join the tens of thousands of members that have already benefited from AZREIA, your home for education, market information, support, and networking opportunities that will advance your real estate investing career.
Hello and welcome to the AZREIA Show. This is your weekly dose of real talk, real deals, and real estate success right here in Arizona. So in this episode, we have Dan Pierce, who's based out of Gilbert, Arizona, and he's a property inspector. So we're going to be talking about that on today. But before we dive in, I always have to ask, Mike, how are you doing?
Wonderful.
Wonderful today? Okay.
Yep.
Had some rain driving in today. Nice.
I always enjoy a cloudy winter day.
Me
Throw
too.
on the sweater.
Yep.
You know,
And we both do. So
last week was Halloween.
last week it was Halloween. Now we're in the Christmas spirit.
Perfect temperatures outside.
We gotta show your logo, man.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Property
inspections plus.
Yes, sir.
So
All right.
Dan, give us a little bit of background about you, man. How did you end up in Arizona, and how did you become a property inspector?
Well, I'm not originally an Arizona native. Small town farm boy from North Dakota. Traveled across the country, did a lot of different things with my wife while she was trying to become an eye doctor. And we ended up landing here in Arizona. She got a great opportunity to become an optometrist down in Mesa. So I was like, let's go check out the sun. And we went down to Arizona, got a house down here, and she's been doing great. But ever since I got here, I saw all the housing market opportunities, and I really wanted to become an appraiser when I first came down here. And then I looked into it, and it took a lot more college education. I needed a 4-year degree, which I don't have. And so I looked into inspecting, and we had a guy inspect our house, and I was just blown away by what he was doing and how he was doing it. And the things that he saw just like inspired me to become a home inspector.
Wow.
Okay.
And if you talk to a lot of home inspectors, that's usually how it gets started, is they get their house inspected and they're like, wow, that looks awesome. But there's some different things that led me down that career path, and you know, just the flexibility, the freedom of doing it, and you know, that's basically what pushes me and drives me, is the opportunity to go out and help people, but at the same time, I'm helping myself and promoting myself.
Okay. So as investors, and most of us are investors, you know, in order for us to get great deals, sometimes we have to waive inspections, everything like that. So why is a property inspection important to a homeowner if it's their primary residence?
Well, as a primary residence, whether you're an investor or you're buying it for your family, it's all about liability. And if you don't look at the liability, you don't know what kind of liability you have. So it's just like I tell people with sewer camera inspections, if you don't put a camera down that sewer pipe, you're not going to know what's down there. So it's the same thing about the whole house. If you don't have a home inspection and somebody looking at all the nuts and bolts of that house, you're kind of flying blind. You don't know what you're purchasing. You're leaving yourself open to vulnerabilities, you know, $10,000, $15,000 sewer repairs. That's pretty common, especially on flipped houses or investment properties that might have some age to them. So anything over about 40 years old, you know, don't skip that sewer camera inspection, because those are the things that are going to come around and bite you on the backside. So you just get in front of it, and it's like an insurance policy. And when I explain it like that to a lot of home buyers, they understand it better. It's $200, $300 for a sewer camera inspection. Saves you $10,000 to $15,000 on the backside. Is there a possibility that we don't find anything? Yes, but what do you get in return? Peace of mind. So you either get peace of mind or information to deal with the seller.
What services do you provide?
I try and cover everything that I possibly can. The important ones in Arizona are going to be your typical home inspection. Sewer cams are a big deal. Termites are everywhere. So every house in Arizona has termites at some point. So when I got started, I became a termite inspector. So I don't work for a termite company, but I do the TARFs. I do all the termite action report forms and send them through a termite company to the state. And that provides a lot of value, because I get up in attics as a home inspector where a lot of termite companies are not going in attics. So there's a lot of misconception about I'm getting a termite company to come in and do an inspection, but they're not going up in the attic. They're not opening your lid. They're not looking at certain things that other home inspectors, by the nature of our job, we're up in the attic already. So
Right.
we're looking at things. And if we see termites, we're going to comment on them. But most termite companies, they're going to go in there and they're going to do a walk around to the perimeter, walk around to the inside. If they don't see anything, they're going to tell you that. You know, just part of the game
Yeah.
is adding those ancillary services. I don't do radon testing. That is one thing I get asked about every once in a while. Our levels of radon are very low here in Arizona, so it's not that big of a deal. But there are some people from other parts of the country that move here that maybe have been exposed to it in the past, and they want to know for sure that their house doesn't have it. So,
And I come to find out, like with a lot of things with radon, it's normally if you have like below grade surfaces, like a basement or something like that. That way, you know, they would do the radon inspection down there versus here in Arizona. There's not too many basement homes, although there are some, but everything's normally above grade.
right. And those basements create little bubble, if you will say, underground that all those gases can kind of hang out in, and you have more exposure to the ground where the radon seeps in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're maybe one out of 75 houses has a basement down here, so it's not that big of a deal. And even if they did have a basement, it's still really low levels.
Okay. So I know you're in the East Valley, Gilbert, and I hear a lot of information, especially like in the Southeast Valley with unsettled land and dirt and how fast these builders are putting these properties up. You know, so have you seen, you know, particular incidents where the dirt is unsettled and maybe you're seeing, you know, foundation cracks and things like that?
Yeah, I see it quite often on new built properties because they'll go in and they'll grade out the entire property, lay out the foundations for all these houses, and then they'll have a huge rainstorm come in. And there's no rocks, there's no landscaping on top of that dirt. So it's all that sand, that clay that gets wet, saturated. And then we're putting in post-tension slabs. So if you don't know what a post-tension slab is, it's a cable that runs through your concrete, your slab of your house. It helps hold everything really steady. So if we do have some movement, the whole slab kind of compensates for it. But before we were doing it, if you had some settlement on one corner, that corner would drop off and it would break. You'd get a lot more cracking. So the post-tension slabs are an upgrade for those expansive soil areas, but they still move. You might have the whole slab shift, and that does happen a lot down in Queen Creek and Santan Valley right now in certain areas. They're actually seeing some depressions or some, you know, some cavities forming in the ground. And that's not good for driveways, for slabs, for underground piping. Everything that's around a property that they build can move.
Yeah, that was, and I'm just speaking specifically on my situation because I am in the Queen Creek, Santan Valley area. And that was one of the things that I specifically told my wife when we bought our house was, I was like, we gotta have gutters. You know, it's just, well, it never rains in Arizona. You know, what the hell we need gutters for? And I'm like, but, you know, if the rain is coming down right next to your foundation, eventually it's going to cause some unsettling. So for you all out there that don't believe in gutters, I do. I'm a Midwestern boy and I see what water can do to a property. So how important is having those gutters?
It's so important. Every drop of rain can potentially lead to a problem. Moisture is our biggest issue when we deal with houses, whether it be the slab settlement, termite intrusion. Termites love moisture, but when you're adding rain gutters, we expect them to help the foundation and control that water around it. A lot of these new builders, they're putting up the gutters to make the home buyers feel really happy and feel really, oh, great, I'm from the Midwest. We've got gutters. This builder knows what they're doing, but they're not installing them properly. They're not flashing them inside the flashing, right? So the water's going down in between the siding and the gutter, or they're hanging off the house. And often what I see is they'll direct them right at the foundation. So they'll put the downspouts right at one spot. So now you have the entire roof runoff is going into one spot right next to your foundation. And it's just going to undermine that concrete and cause damage over time. So the thought is there and it looks good, but there really has to be some, you know, some foresight in how that water is going to get off the property and not just off the roof.
Isn't there codes that they have to follow, or
There's
anyone that inspects this stuff?
Yeah, there's certain codes that they have to follow, you know. That's why the third inspection or the third-party home inspector is so important because we're not responsible for the buyer. Or I mean, let me rephrase that. That's why a third-party inspection is so important, is because we're not paid for by the builder. When the builder goes in and does their own inspections, of course, they're not going to try to find things. They're
Right.
going to try and sell the house. And,
Yeah.
I have my duty is towards my client, whoever pays me money, whether it be a real estate investor or a home buyer. My best interest goes towards the person that pays me the money, and I'm always looking out for safety. I'm always looking out for their pocketbook, number two.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always those instances where the builders are going to say, pass the inspection. Don't worry about it. We had somebody come through and look at it. I can't tell you how many new houses I've done sewer camera inspections on, and I find like an old glove,
Wow.
cemented in the drain pipe, or you find rocks built up under the house in the drain pipe,
Mm-hmm.
or in the front yard, they drive their tractors or their payloaders off the road, and it goes right over the drain pipe, and now the drain pipe is cracked. Nobody would have any idea about that until you put a camera down.
Okay.
So it's risk.
Something key you said right there is third-party independent inspector, right? You don't work for the seller. You technically work for the buyer, but your whole thing is I'm coming in here independent and I'm looking at the property and the structure itself. So yes, you may have a default in this area and this area may be good. What are some of the things that you notice, like some common trends that you see when inspecting homes here in the Valley?
Some really common things that I find are obviously no gutters. We'll just start off with that because it's raining out today. It's on my mind. It's probably on everybody's mind. Same with the low tire pressure light on my car popped up this morning. I'm sure that happened to a lot of people.
Yep.
But some of the common things I find is moisture control. And that leads to the most damage that I find on houses. In flipped houses, I can't tell you how many times I've found no dryer vent installed. There's basic things that get forgotten, and I don't want to say it's just on flipped homes, but it's usually a house that's been renovated and quickly pushed out to the market, and nobody took time to actually live in the house or make sure that everything functioned properly. So when the buyers go and they try and hook up their dryer, they have no pipe to hook it to. There's
Wow.
nothing going out the roof. There's nothing going out the wall. And I would say that's a little close to 50% of the flipped homes I see, because the
Wow.
laundry
Wow.
room usually gets moved somewhere.
Somewhere here.
And they just don't hook that up. They'll do the piping for the washing machine and the electrical, but then they won't pipe out the duct for the dryer.
So you probably see, like how Marcus brought up the East Valley. Is there like anything common you see in other parts of the valley that stand out for certain areas?
Certain parts of Phoenix and Scottsdale have flat roofs.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people store stuff on roofs when they're flat. And
Oh,
that's
really?
not a good thing either. No, I mean, I go up there and you find army men from the 80s. You can find some cool stuff up, but people storing like really heavy items on roofs, they're not made for storage.
I didn't know people store things on their roof.
Well, when you get a parapet wall, that you get a
Yeah,
flat
yeah.
roof, and then you get like a 2.5-foot section around the perimeter, and nobody from the street can really see what's up
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decent place to put stuff.
I remember this property we were looking at in Scottsdale, particularly. The owner was like, "Yeah, I have a ladder. And we was like, "Okay, well, where's the ladder at?" It's up on the roof. It's like, well, that's a very good place for it. So, but I'm saying all that to say, yeah, you got the ladder up on the roof. So when it do rain, right, all of that water is going to puddle around whatever you have stored in there. So now it's going to start to make a place for water to come in.
Yeah. And not to get too technical, but a flat roof is not 100% flat. It's meant to direct water very slightly off to scuppers on the side of the perimeter. So everything you put up there just stops all the water and debris from going out the scuppers. So if you've got big trees next to your house, all that, the debris from the trees sitting on your roof now, and then when it rains, it's just going to clog up that scupper, and now you've got a big pond on top of your roof. So you gotta keep flat roofs free and clear.
I dealt with foam roofs a few times. What do you think about foam roofs?
They're good.
Yeah, you like them?
If you can keep carpenter bees away from them.
Carpenter bees.
Carpenter bees love foam roofs. It's the weirdest thing about carpenter. You guys may have never seen a carpenter bee, but they're big, black, and they eat wood, but they eat foam roofs like crazy. Saw that up in Cave Creek. You just walk around the roof and you'll see little holes all over the foam roof. I think foam roofs are great to keep the coolness inside of our house and keep the hot out. The more we can keep hot from penetrating the roof surface, the easier it's going to be to keep the house comfortable, and the more efficient your AC system is going to work. So a foam roof, I think, starts on the perimeter, and I think that's a great place to start. As long as you can keep that sealed, keep the carpenter bees away from it, you'll be fine.
Got it. So like when I was telling you earlier, as investors, sometimes we don't do inspection periods or we don't get them right. So, or sight unseen, whatever it may be. So for a member investor that's just walking through a house, what are some like red flags that you might say that you notice that we can use, whether it's foundation, we always think big ticket items and stuff. So what are some things that you could share with us to look out for that may be a problem?
One thing that I usually look for in a house that has some age to it is two-pronged outlets.
Okay.
So we don't see them very often anymore. And if I see two-pronged outlets on the wall, that means that there's no grounding system in that house. The house was built before we had grounding safety installed. So sometimes you'll see those two-pronged outlets replaced with three-prong outlets just for functionality, just so they can plug the vacuum cleaner into it or plug the surge protector into it, and it has that ground hole. But it doesn't mean that that outlet is grounded.
Right.
So we have to do a little bit more investigating on stuff like that and check the electrical panel. And if that has not been replaced, we know there's no grounding then, and those are fake, per se, electrical outlets. And that's something easy that you can find out if you look at the electrical panel, and it's dated past, say the 80s, 70s, 80s, and you've got three-prong outlets, you might not have any grounding.
Right.
A simple electrical tester, plugging it into it, will tell you that it's not grounded. It'll have one light in the middle and just say it's ungrounded.
Okay.
I could see that in those Central Phoenix houses for sure.
Because it's not just about replacing plugs. At that point, you're replacing all the wires in the electrical panel. And that gets to be a lot of money. And when people are trying to make money off a house for a profit, you can't stick all that money into everything. So, some corners are cut, and I don't like to see corners cut for safety reasons. And electrical is one of the biggest safety issues out there. So if you're going to renovate a property and put some money into it, I really think it's really your due diligence to put some of that money into the electrical system and have an electrician, a licensed electrician, verify that that's safe. Whether you're going to be reselling the house or if you're going to be renting it out to somebody, that's huge liability reasons down the road if you're going to be a landlord. So you want to know that your tenants are protected.
So how can you tell from in the electrical panel? So if we're walking through the property, what do you look for?
I would just look for an old panel.
Just old panel, okay.
Yeah, if you see an old panel and two-pronged outlets, you likely don't have a grounding system.
Got it. Makes sense.
You could take off the dead front cover and see if there's a grounding bus bar in there and get really technical, but don't do that. If it's an old panel, it's not safe to open that up anyway. Even inspectors, if we see an old panel that's like 40, 50 years old, we might not pull that cover off just for safety reasons.
Okay. Go to Home Depot and get you a little $15 plug tester.
Yes.
Call it a day.
What happens if you open up the panel? I don't think I've ever thought about that. I've probably opened up every one I've ever seen. Look,
well, you said taking the panel off.
Oh, got it. No, I was thinking you meant the door.
No, so
I'm like, what the heck's
open
wrong
up
with
the
that?
door, and then there's that panel with all the
sheet.
writing on it.
Yeah.
That's what we call a dead front.
Got it.
For that reason, you take that off. Just good.
A lot of the houses we see don't even have that.
Right.
I don't go near it. I don't. Yes, okay.
Or they're cut out of cardboard and somebody wrote on them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Okay.
All right, what else?
Another thing I see that I think would be a big thing for real estate agents to understand is the difference between a gas and electric house. It is very easy to tell the difference between a gas and electric house from the street. If you just look at the roof, you look for a B vent. You look for some type of gas venting coming out of the roof. I can't tell you how many times I went to a house for sale to inspect it, and it's listed as a gas, and there's no gas meter, there's no gas flue, or vice versa. And when it comes down to buyers, they're looking for houses that might have gas because there's a lot of people that like to cook with gas. They don't necessarily need the oven to be gas, but they want that cooktop to be gas. And if they don't have that, they might just find another property.
Wow. Can it just still be up there even if they switch the whole house to electric?
It could be,
Yeah.
but you would have a meter on the outside, and you would likely see that meter. Our meters are always on the side of our house, so if you walk around the house and you don't see a gas meter, you're not going to have gas. unless they piped in a propane tank from somewhere, but that's highly unusual.
Oh, for that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Give us a cool story, man. I know you did a lot of houses. What's some houses that you done walk through and you'd be like, I cannot believe this.
I've done so many properties that I've found some weird stuff in them. I've found some, abandoned properties. When I first moved to Arizona, I did property preservation.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you guys are familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a gig because you'd go to these houses that maybe somebody lost to the bank, got foreclosed on, or, to say the least, maybe they passed in the house. And then you have to go in there and tell the bank that there's 10 yards of debris in this house that needs to be removed before we can go in and actually work on it. And then they approve it. We go in and pull all that stuff out and haul it off to a junkyard. And they just basically give it the business to us, and we get rid of the stuff, get the house ready for the bank to go in foreclosure. And you would find old fridges that were plumb full. Yeah, the smells that would come out of those, and they don't leave the house. You open that door for 2 seconds, that whole house is
Never open the door. Never open the kitchen, the refrigerator door.
never just hauling out and throwing.
You're right.
But I've saw houses with train sets built into the rooms, like trains will come out of the walls and around and into the garage. People have got some creative ideas, I tell you. But it's usually the creativeness in repairs that astonishes me. People try to DIY to save a couple bucks here and there. So they're always trying to cut corners and do things, just enough to get it past an inspection or something like that.
It's always plumbing and electrical, right?
Yes. Those are the scary ones.
Yeah.
That's true. Those are the scary ones. And those are the things that most people think that they can do.
Yeah.
And in the end, it ends up biting them in the butt. A house burns down if you don't do the electrical right up in the attic, or your plumbing backs up because you didn't get the right size pipes in the drain system. Those are things that licensed plumbers and electricians can inform you on. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, but the headache that it saves down the road is far more than, the problems that it's going to give you.
It's funny as you talk about that. I remember, and this was before I moved to Arizona, I had bought a house in Illinois, and it was a foreclosure. And I was like, man, I just really want to put some can lights up here, right? And down the hallway and in the living room and stuff. So I went and bought the box kit, from like Lowe's and everything. I'm like, I'm going to just go up here and do this. And I'm up there in the attic and I'm like, you're really not supposed to be doing this. You're not an electrician. And I was like, and let me come on down. Let me just call somebody. But yeah, you can easily find yourself, especially if you're good with working with your hands. You think you could do anything. And then, like you say, in the middle of the night, your house is on fire because you did some shoddy work.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say don't attempt to do some of this stuff, but you really got to think it through. And there's certain things that, you can probably do completely fine and not have any problems with. Some of us that grew up on farms, I'm from the Midwest too. I'm from a small town in North Dakota. I grew up in an 1895 Victorian mansion that my parents cut apart and reassembled on our farm. And I grew up in a bed and breakfast where we had people all over the country come and live with us, on and off. It was a heck of an experiment or experience. But my dad and my grandpa did a lot of that housework themselves. So anytime something would fail, they knew how to fix it.
How to fix it, right.
They knew how to fix it. There's a lot of stuff that's not safe in that house. And they're not licensed electricians or plumbers, and that's why. But, it's still a beautiful house. Doesn't mean it's going to burn down, but there's just better ways to do things.
And that's the thing, like you said, your father and grandfather, they knew if something went wrong, they knew exactly where to go. But if you sell that house and a new buyer gets it and something happens, they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So
even an inspector moving in or an inspector coming into a house that they've never been before, I get like 3 hours to write a story about this house. And the more information that's right in front of me, the easier it is to write that story. But if I've got to search for everything, if I've got to search for problems and look behind walls, I can't see anything. I don't know what they put in the walls in 1970. I have no way of knowing that.
Okay.
Yeah, what did you find on
Don't do your own.
There you go. One thing that we tell, I'm sure a lot of new home buyers get scared when they see one of your reports, right? And same thing with, newer investors, we always highly suggest getting an inspection period and getting an inspection done before they buy their rental or whatever it may be. So sometimes it could be intimidating seeing all these markups.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about that? Because it's really not as big as some people think when they're newer.
It's usually not as big. We, as inspectors, we are told to not be, worry wards or try to scare our clients, but we have to give them the information that we find.
Yeah.
And I see things every day that most homeowners don't see in their lifetime. So when I see a miswired electrical outlet, I'm calling that out for a reason. It doesn't have to be a $500 fix, and I know a licensed electrician is going to cost a little bit more than a handyman, but it's done right. It's you're paying for that extra peace of mind that it's done right. And if anything happens, they can go to the state and complain to the state. If you're dealing with a handyman or somebody that isn't licensed, you don't have that to resort to. The state isn't going to help you out. So always go back to the licensed people, in my opinion. You can always find people to do it cheaper, but you pay for what you get. You get what you pay for. So when I talk to a client about moving into a house, I'm trying to inform them about everything under the house, above the house, in the attic. So if there's things in the attic that scare me, say a roof leak, I'm going to bring it up to their attention and say that they need a roofer to come in and give them an estimate. They're going to say, how much is that going to cost? And I'm going to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Between $5,000 and $10,000, something like that. I'm going to give them a rough estimate. And the only number that they remember is 10,000.
Yeah.
They don't remember the 5, they remember the 10. So they're thinking, oh crap, $10,000 is going to be a lot of money. But then they get a roofer out, and the roofer gives them 3 different options. You can do a regular felt underlayment for $6,000. You can do upgraded felt underlayment for $9,000, or you can go above and beyond and do like a rolled roofing underneath your concrete tiles. We'll charge you $15,000, but this roof will last for 50 years. So there's different options of repairs. Just because you go with a licensed roofer, electrician, plumber, doesn't mean that they're going to give you the most expensive options. Most of these companies now have different ways of fixing things. So just because I shoot a number out there doesn't mean that it's the right number. It's just to kind of give you a ballpark estimate and kind of steer you in the right direction. But as an inspector, I'm always referring to other licensed professionals, because it's not my job to determine what is the correction and how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, for like someone new, whether it's our flips or even my wife's an agent, I always hear the conversations and stuff. So it's like, oh, whether it's the agent talking to my wife, like, they just, whatever you say, if you're like, hey, this can be a hazard, it's like bigger, and I feel like I've heard conversations where I think the inspectors went overboard as to like they should be saying. So it's cool to hear that here's what I found. Call a licensed person, figure it out.
I think ego plays a part in some of that for some inspectors.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to, point any fingers at anybody, but sometimes, we need to find stuff in order for our job to be relevant.
Yeah.
If we don't find stuff, we're not relevant. I don't look at my job that way. I look at my job, I'm going to find as much stuff as I can, and I'm going to present it to you, and then we're going to talk about it. I'm going to educate you so you understand what this means, what that means, what your next steps are. I'm not going to go in there and say, hey, I wouldn't buy this house because it's going to fall down in a month.
Yeah,
I don't know your situation. I don't know your financial obligations or what you're capable of buying. That's not my problem. I'm really just trying to look out for your future and this problem.
That's awesome.
All right, Dan. So, man, how can we find you? How can we get in touch with you? Give us your resources.
Well, you can find me all over the internet on YouTube and Instagram. I try to make as many videos, informational videos, as I possibly can. My website is propertyinspectionsplus.com. You can get free quotes, which I actually do investor special inspection pricing.
Okay.
So I drop the price down for investors that want to just get a nuts and bolts. So most home buyers go into a house, they want to know every single problem, every outlet problem. Most investors just want kind of, give me a rundown. What's going on in this house? Does it need insulation? Does it need an electrician to come through? So I do like a walk and talk with that. We'll spend a couple hours at a property just walking and looking at things on the property. We'll do a sewer camera inspection. And at the end of the day, you guys, as investors, come in about the same price for all of that as a regular residential home inspection.
Oh, good.
But the liability that covers for you guys is phenomenal, because this is all about, your capital expenditures, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep that low. So, or at least understand what you're potentially going to be spending on this property before you ready check.
Okay.
And even like that idea for even before you list your flip, even that, maybe there's like a package that would you go before and after? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so go after the contractor goes through and double check all the work before you list the house. So you already know what so you don't get a Binzer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You ever done that?
No.
It's a good idea. It's always good, but just think about it's the same set of eyes.
Yeah.
If somebody was going to come through and buy a brand new house for me and I inspect it for them right before they move in, like I did yesterday, they asked me, hey, we've got an 11-month warranty window coming up before that 1-year warranty. And they said, will you come back? I said, I sure will. But I think you'd be better off getting another inspector in here to look at things, because I've already looked at your house.
Right.
I've looked at the things that I deem as important, and no two inspectors are identical. Everybody's going to look at things a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, we're really trying to look out for the bottom line of our clients and their safety. But it's not a bad idea to get more eyes on a property. It's never a bad idea. It just usually costs more money, and that's why people shy away from it.
Awesome. And what are your social medias?
You can find me on YouTube at Home Inspector Dan,
Mm-hmm.
and on Instagram, you can find me at HomeInspector_Dan.
Okay.
Awesome.
So you all know what to do. Reach out to Dan. Go to propertyinspectionplus.com and schedule an appointment with Dan. And we want to thank you guys for being loyal listeners to the AZREIA Show. You know what to do. Always subscribe to the channel. Give us a like. Give us a thumbs up. And then also go to AZREIA.org. That's AZREIA.org for all of the upcoming events we have here at AZREIA. And we would love for you to be a part of our community.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the AZREIA Show with your hosts, Marcus Maloney and Mike Delprete. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found this information valuable, head over to AZREIA.org and learn more about our community.